What's going on, guys? Welcome back to your Lake Fork Guide. Appreciate you guys joining us tonight. It is the pregame show for the Bassmaster Elite Series. We're going to discuss this year's schedule a little bit. We're going to talk about who we think is going to win Angler of the Year. Of course, we're going to preview this tournament, make some picks for that as well. We'll also update you on what's been going on at the Bass Pro Tour so far in Florida as well. All the tournaments, as always, beginning in Florida for the first couple stops of the year. So we're going to break down what we're seeing from a fan's perspective all the way over here in the great state of Tejas and break down, whatever we can to help you get more enjoyment out of your viewing pleasure. I really don't know what I'm doing. We're going off the rails early. That's what we do. Cheers, y'all. Let's get it. Do us a favor as you guys get in here tonight, like you always do, man. Hit that thumbs up for me if you don't mind. Drop me a comment so that we'll know who we're talking to. And, man, the number one thing you can do to help us out is to go ahead and share this video. If you know how to share it, you're smarter than me. I really don't even know how to do that. But if you do, most of you probably are, I would greatly appreciate if you would share this thing to get it out there to more folks. That's the number one way you can help us here at your Lake Fork Guide. I do want to take this time to say thank you so much to each and every one of you that's watched. If you've watched before, thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming back. If you've never watched before, thank you for joining us first time. My name's Billy Lawson. I'm a guide out here in Texas on Lake Fork. I spend my life in the fishing industry. I don't tournament fish for a living, never have, probably never will. Got my own reasons for that, but bottom line is I get to spend my life chasing these little green fish out here in Northeast Texas around Lake Fork. And what that does is it offers me an opportunity to get a unique perspective of not only fish, but the people in the industry, right? And the tournament fishermen itself. I've gotten to meet a lot of those guys over the year, gotten to know some of them, consider some of them friends. So we like to cover some of the tournament fishing that goes on the top level with the Elite Series and Bass Pro Tour and kind of hopefully give you guys a little bit behind the scenes look at what's going on, maybe give you guys a little bit of insight into what you can expect to see and things you might want to watch out for as you watch these bass fishing tournaments at the top level. That being said, let me get my little fancy computer up right here, you know what I mean? So tonight we're going to talk about Bassmaster Elite Series like we already said once, but we're going to say it again. We'll say it a bunch, I'm sure. We'll talk about the Bassmaster Elite Series, preview that, pregame that, so to speak, and give you guys predictions on not only this tournament, but Angler of the Year as well. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. We have a history, folks, of being pretty darn accurate. If you like fantasy fishing, if you're into that kind of stuff, we do have a very good standing history from years past of picking these things fairly accurately. We did pick Brandon Polnick to win Angler of the Year last year before the season ever started and nailed that one right on the head. In fact, he was the first pick. Me and my partner Chris that does some of these with me, we each picked a few guys for Angler of the Year, and he was my number one pick was Brandon Polnick, and he was the one that ended up winning. So we got that one absolutely perfect. All right, so let's talk about Bass Pro Tour. Before we get to Elite Series, let's talk about Bass Pro Tour and what's going on there. Because they started early. I believe they're on like the Harris chain, Toho, maybe it's the Kissimmee chain. I can't remember if it's Kissimmee chain or Harris chain. It's the one with Toho in it. I always get them confused. Is it Kissimmee's on the St. John's and Harris is on Toho, or is it the other way around? It's Florida Lakes, you know what I mean? Like they're all kind of the same anyway. But Toho, I think Toho's the one they're on right now, so I think that's the Harris chain. You know how Bass Pro Tour is, man. It's a great roster of anglers, a phenomenal roster of anglers. They've gone to 5 fish this year, so that's new. We're going to see how that shakes out for them as far as views go. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. If anything, I think it might help. I certainly don't think it's going to hurt anything. I mean, we've all been used to watching 5 fish derbies our entire lives. It's not going to detract any viewers away, I don't believe. But They do still have the split group thing, which is different and kind of weird, if you're used to traditional fishing tournaments where everybody fishes at once. So we've got Group A and Group B. Group A has gone through 2 days of fishing. Right now, as of tonight, Group A has gone through 2 days. So they've had their first 2-day cut where they have 40 anglers in Group A, 40 anglers in Group B. Group A has had their cut. So let's look at Group A and see what's going on there. We got Jeremy Lawyer is leading. Now, what's weird here is you're seeing in this tournament, you can be on them one day and off them the next. If you look at, say, Fletcher Shryock, who's down here in 10th place, he made the cut. But, man, the only reason he made the cut is because he had a real big day on day one. He caught 23 pounds on day one. He caught 6 pounds and 15 ounces, so right at 7 pounds on day two. So you can be on them and then off them real quick. And In those type of tournaments, what I like to look for, typically in a 4-day tournament, when you got those guys going up and down in weights, you look for the guys that are consistent. But in the Bass Pro Tour, it's different. Like, normally you would say, okay, well, if it's, 35 pounds over the first 2 days to win, where's my guy that's catching 16 or 17 every day? And that's what you would look for. And right now, Jesse Wiggins is one of those guys, right? He's gotten 17 and 16. I've got an 18 and a 14. That's a little more inconsistent from Mark Rose. Ott Defoe is 15-1, 15-15. Ott Defoe would be a guy that I would pick in this. Jordan Lee, 15-08, 15-07. These guys that are consistent in these up and down tournaments typically do good. The difference is in Bass Pro Tour, they zero everything out. So what you got to pick a winner in Bass Pro Tour, it's so difficult because the consistent guys are the ones that are going to make it, right? That's the guys that are going to make it to the final day, to the top 10. But they're often not the guys that get it done on the final day. It's some dude that is up and down, big bag, big bag, and then he slides in, and then he has big bag on the final day in the top 10, and he wins. So it's very difficult to pick winners in the Bass Pro Tour. It's much easier to pick your winners after a day or two in the Elite Series or even before the tournament in the Elite Series than it is on Bass Pro Tour. But right now we got Jeremy Lawyer, followed by Jeff Sprague, Shin Fakai, Jesse Wiggins, Mitch Crane, Mark Rose, Ott Defoe, Jordan Lee, Todd Fairclough, Fletcher Schick. That is your top 10 in Group A. The weights are as such: 35-7, 33-10, 33-9, 33-4, 32-11, all the way down to Fletcher at 10th at 30. So the weights are pretty tight. Nobody's running away in this 5-fish format in any way. The weights are very, very tight. That is one thing that I think will help them in the long run. Now, I don't know about this eliminating your weights. I think they may have to forego some of this 6-day tournament deal that they got going on, or 5-day tournament deal, whatever it is that they have going on. And they're going to have to go to a 4-day tournament and put everybody in the field at the same time. I think they're going to have to go back. If you're going to do a 5-fish tournament, you got to go back to 4 days of fishing, guys, because zeroing these weights out. The only way you can split the field is if you zero the weights after you condense the groups. You have to zero the weights if you have a split group. But these tournaments, if you want them to stay, for them to be tight and competitive and see the work build up over 4 days, I think that's a value too. Like, I think they should go to a 4-day deal. Don't know whether they will or not. We'll see. Everything's new with it. That's one thing I will caution everybody about. Let's all be patient. The 5-fish coverage for them is live. It is a new thing for this Bass Pro Tour crew. Let's let them feel their way through it and see where they're making mistakes. I heard somebody complaining the other day about Adrian Avena being so far in front of everybody. All you did was watch him pre-fish. Well, yes, he was way out in front of everybody, and yes, he was just shaking fish off and pre-fishing the rest of the day. Bass Pro Tour will get better about, hey, when that guy gets out to a big lead, let's go get that boat, get that camera out of that guy's boat and put it in somebody else's. They'll adjust to that and get it better on the coverage as far as that goes. Always like to look at some guys that didn't make the cut. Brett Hite and Brian Thrift, okay, in a Florida event, I think those guys are throwing chatterbaits. It's still pre-spawn to spawn in Florida right now. They've had some cold conditions to deal. That's one of the reasons the weights are going up and down too. They've had some weather to deal with down there in Florida, right? And we all know Florida strain bass with the weather is, man, it's a crapshoot in and of itself. But Brett Hite and Brian Thrift, probably throwing a chatterbait. Hey, that's the type of guys right there. When you get on that chatterbait deal in Florida, that's one of those things where you can rack up a real big bag real quick if it lines up conditions-wise and everything else. Like, you can hit the big home run. If you can find them offshore on an Okeechobee or a Harris Chain Toho, whatever, if you can find them offshore in that grass and find an actual school of fish, instead of having to be up in the junk flipping, catching kind of one at a time, if you can get them out there in a school and catch them in numbers, man, sometimes you find the right school, you can run away with the derby. So watch out for Brian Thrift and Brett Hite, probably the two best chatterbait fishermen on earth, honestly. Andy Morgan was the last man in. So let's see who missed the cut, notable-wise. You got Skeet Reese, David Dudley, Michael Neal. Michael Neal is a huge surprise to me that he missed the cut. Michael Neal is a guy that basically makes every cut everywhere. He's one of the best anglers on earth, one of the most consistent anglers on earth. So that's a huge surprise that Michael Neal missed the cut at the first Bass Pro Tour event of the year. Maybe he's in for a down year this year, maybe not. We'll see. But that is shocking. I don't recall the last time I saw Michael Neal miss a cut, period. He's just so good. Alton Jones missed a cut. He's usually really good in Florida. Randall Tharp is a good shallow water flipper. He missed the cut. Luke Clausen's been good the last couple of years. He missed the cut. Man, there's a lot of good guys. Zach Burge has been good the last couple of years. He missed a cut. lots of shocking. Dean Rojas, who's, we all know Dean and the frog in the shallow water, he missed a cut. So, Florida is an inconsistent place to fish as far as how you can catch them down there. You can catch them one day and not the next. We're seeing that in the weights, and we're even seeing that over 2 days for some guys that really struggled overall and didn't make the cut, and they're guys that you would expect to make the cut. So Florida is a very difficult place to keep it dialed in consistently, and I think the results are showing that. All right, so in Group B, basically we know nothing yet because the results were so inconsistent in Group A. I'll go ahead and tell you what we got. We got Adrian Avina in first with 26, Randy Howell in second with 23, Jacob Wheeler, of course, is up there in third with 19. Dakota Eber is in fourth with 18, and Dakota Eber is quietly becoming, Dakota Eber from South Louisiana is quietly becoming one of the hottest anglers on planet Earth. Watch out for this guy this year. He's catching them in tackle warehouse events or whatever they call their leagues. I can't even keep up with all the names that MLF has for their tours now, but I think you got Toyota Series, you've got the BFLs, whatever they call those now, and you've got what used to be the FLW Tour that's now called the Invitationals, I think. Eber's already won a BFL at Rayburn. He had a very good finish in Florida on another lake at one of the tackle warehouse or whatever, one of the other circuits. He had a great year last year overall. Did way better in smallmouth country than anybody I think thought he would, being from the South, especially the deep South like he's from. He didn't have a smallmouth anywhere inside of where he was cutting his teeth at when he was fishing, you know what I mean? Like growing up down in South Louisiana, that boy didn't see too many smallmouth. I'm just telling you, they ain't a lot of smallmouth down there in South Louisiana. So he's one to kind of keep your eye on going forward, Dakota Eber is, and he started out good here in fourth place on day one as well. All right, let's look down the line. Justin Lucas is in. I think Justin Lucas will have a big year on the Bass Pro Tour this year. Here's something interesting. The cut line right now, you got some legends. You got Timmy Horton, Mark Davis, Brent Ayler, Cliff Crochet. They're all right. That's the cut line's right in the middle of that foursome right there. So that'll be interesting to watch tomorrow how that shakes out. Down below the cut line, notable names, Mark Daniels Jr., Dustin Connell. It's a notable name below the cut line. Edwin Evers has had a horrible day one, 9 pounds. Kevin Van Dam announced that Kevin Van Dam announcing he's retiring. Big deal right there. His first tournament of his last year has started off rough. He's in 39th out of 40 with 5 pounds. So that's not good for Kevin. I'm sure, even though this is last year he's retiring, he's probably over there gritting his teeth tonight a little bit. So the second group seems to kind of be going more along the lines of what you would expect as far as which anglers are in and which anglers are out. There's some shock, but not nearly as much as in Group A. So that'll be interesting to watch how that shakes out tomorrow. Let's go ahead and give you guys a couple of Angler of the Year picks. We'll go ahead and do some Angler of the Year picks for Bass Pro Tour, right? Now, we've had the advantage of seeing the first couple days of competition unfold, but that's really not going to change much, in my opinion, of who I think. The one person that my opinion has changed on for Angler of the Year just because he missed the cut in the first event. If you miss a cut, that is a huge detriment to Angler of the Year efforts when you miss a cut. Michael Neal. Michael Neal would have been in my Angler of the Year conversation based on the way he's fished the last 2 or 3 years and just caught him everywhere he's gone and just made every cut. He's been up near the Angler of the Year. He won Angler of the Year on the FLW Tour or whatever they call it now. Last year or year before, I can't remember. I think it was last year he won on that. But he's been in the top 5 on Bass Pro Tour the last couple of years. Like, he's been really good in Angler of the Year race, and he would have been in the conversation. But missing the cut at the first event, probably not going to pick him to be Angler of the Year after that. That's not a good sign, right? That's kind of hard to overcome a little bit. Michael Neal might. He might still be in that Angler of the Year race. We'll see. I think when you're talking Angler of the Year on Bass Pro Tour, guys, it's almost impossible right now for any sensible person to pick anyone but Jacob Wheeler. Jacob Wheeler, between the wins that he's had, the tournament wins that he had year before last, the dominance he showed last year in winning Angler of the Year, everything's trending up with Jacob Wheeler. Like, I don't know that we've seen the peak of Jacob Wheeler yet. It seems like every year he's amazing. 2 years, not last year, not the year before that, but the year before that, you were looked at Jacob Wheeler and he was in the argument. You were like, man, is he the best in the world? Then he goes out and he wins like 87 tournaments in a year. or whatever it was. Like I think he won three or four Bass Pro. We win 3 or 4 Bass Pro Tour events in a single year. That's unheard of to win an event of that level in 2021. That's unheard of to win that many events at that level in 1 year. Like nobody does that, right? Nobody does that, okay? He did. And you're like, hands down the best in the world. Hands down. Then my man goes out and has a dominant Angler of the Year campaign the year after that. And you're like, hey, he's even better this year. He's even better. Like, how does he keep getting better? This guy's unbelievable, man. Jacob Wheeler's something else. So I don't see how you pick anybody but Jacob Wheeler as your Angler of the Year pick for Bass Pro Tour. Now, the odds of him continuing this level of success, historically, it says that's not going to happen. But he has shown us no inkling that he's slowing down. He's in the top, what was he, in second or third right now? I think he's in third place right now after his first day of competition. So he's going. He's going. I think his little crew's about to dominate this year. I think Adrian Avina's leading day one. I know Connell's below the cut line right now. Connell's a guy that I kind of look at and go, is he ready to make an Angler of the Year push? He's had a lot, several wins now and coming to his own. And, man, he's an absolute stud right now. So Connell's another one that I would say is in my top picks for Angler of the Year on Bass Pro Tour. And then the outsider pick that I'm going to give you guys for Bass Pro Tour Angler of the Year is a guy. Before we move on to that, Justin Lucas as well. I think Justin Lucas is consistently there. He's always a threat. Obviously, he's good up north when they go on the smallmouth, but he's good all across the country. He's having a good start to his first day of the tournament. He's one of them guys that'll probably be real consistent and catch him and have a top. And he'll do that for the whole year, it seems like. That's just kind of Justin Lucas' MO, real consistent for the most part. He's going to cut a lot of checks like he always does, and he will be in the Angler of the Year race as well. So we got Jacob Wheeler, Dustin Connell, Justin Lucas, and my last one is going to be a guy I mentioned a little while ago. I'm probably a little early on this guy. He probably needs another year or two to really push for this. But, man, I'm telling you, the way he's fishing right now, he's fishing on a different level. I'm going to put Dakota Ebert in the Angler of the Year conversation. So there's 4 picks for Angler of the Year. Jacob Wheeler, Dustin Connell, Justin Lucas, Dakota Ebert. Outsider pick for the comeback guy. He's got to get back in the conversation. I don't think he'll do it, so I'm not picking him. But Jordan Lee's starting to kind of get some bite back to his game. He kind of fell off there a little bit. He's getting a little bite back to his game. He might get back in that conversation by the end of the year. We'll see. We'll see. But the 4 picks are the 4 picks. Wheeler, Connell, Justin Lucas, Dakota Ebert. There's your Angler of the Year picks and your update on Bass Pro Tour. Now, let's discuss the pregame for the Bassmaster Elite Series. Bassmaster Elite Series starts tomorrow. They're going to be fishing Lake Okeechobee I believe this is the first time in quite a while that they have fished Lake Okeechobee. It's been a minute since they've been there. So, I don't know. Y'all drop it in the comments and let me know. Do y'all want to do Angler of the Year preview and picks first, or do y'all want to do tournament preview and picks first? Somebody said they feel like it's panic mode to me, and I believe they're talking about them making the change to 5 fish on the Bass Pro Tour versus every fish counts. He's saying that he thinks they're panicking, they're reaching, they're hurting for money. But guys, let me give you a newsflash. Both of these trails are hurting for money. Both of them. The fishing industry, and this is a whole nother podcast. Maybe we'll do a podcast on this, a talk show, whatever you want to call it. The entire tournament fishing industry at the top level is struggling for money. They were paying guys more in the late 80s and early 90s than they're paying them now. The winners made more back then. That's insane. If you really think about that, how crazy that is. Tournament bass fishing is a dying industry at the top level. Why is that? Here's why that is. Tournament bass fishing is always slow. Bass fishing in general, bass fishermen as a whole, are very, very slow to accept change, to accept modern tactics, modern ways, modern technology. All that. Bass fishermen are slow to accept that. They are. They really are. I mean, the Alabama rig existed in saltwater fishing forever before we ever thought about throwing it for a bass. Forward-facing sonar was around for years with crappie fishermen before we started using it for bass fishing, and none of us did until we saw Patrick Walters do it in a tournament. The majority of us. I'm not talking, there's individuals that did. The majority of us did not adapt and start wanting to use forward-facing sonar until we saw Patrick Walters use it in a tournament and win, going away using that technology. And there's been guys using it for a long time before that, years, okay? So it was there and available to us, and we're just slow to adapt to change. The eyeball time. So where does the money come from in bass fishing? The money come in any sport, NFL, MLB, hockey, you name it. In every single sport, the money comes from two outlets. One, tickets at the gate. Bass fishing don't have that. Two, advertising dollars. And all that really matters for marketing dollars, when you boil it all down, is the eyeball time on your product. Bass fishing has taken a huge hit in the eyeball time on their product. People transitioning from television shows to streaming platforms, from cable TV to streaming services. Not only that, but if you're a bass fishing fan, you got to think about this. All of us that tournament bass fish on the weekends, we're not the normal bass fishermen. The normal bass fisherman, the average bass fisherman, the majority of people that participate in the world of bass fishing, they have a backpack, a worm bag, and a rod or two. And every once in a while they get a ride in somebody's boat, or they get a John boat, or a plastic pond hopper. And they fish ponds and parks and streams and wherever they can walk to. Like, that's the majority of the industry, guys. Believe it or not, it really, really is. Okay? There is not enough money in the hardcore angler. There's not enough hardcore anglers that are spending $70,000 plus on a bass boat every few years. There's not enough of those guys to fund the entire industry. There's just not. And so what has happened is, with the evolution of social media and the advent of so much more content that's out there available to people, all the eyeball time is getting split up. And slowly but surely, these advertising dollars are going away from the bass fishing world and going to some 19-year-old kid that's got 100,000 subscribers making pond fishing videos. You know, somebody's paying, Strike King's giving him some money. That exists right now. A 19-year-old kid with a backpack going to ponds is getting paid by Strike King to throw their baits on his show because he's got the eyeball time. He's got some eyeball time, so they're giving him some money. And for every one of those dollars that goes that way, it comes out of what used to be the only game in town, were professional tournament fishing, Bassmaster Elite Series FLW Tour, and TV fishing shows, Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance, all that good stuff. You know, if you could get a TV show, you had it made back in the day. Not the case anymore. There's 1 million kids that got their own bass fishing TV show now. Yours truly included, right? And I've pulled a little bit of those sponsor dollars away every once in a while. I get some of that love, and we're small, guys. We're 25,000 subscribers. We're nothing. We're an absolute minuscule, don't mean anything in the big scheme of things channel, okay? I don't take lightly the people that watch me. I appreciate it. You know, we get 80, 100,000 views every 4 weeks, whatever it is. That's a crap load of views, but in the big scheme of things, that's nothing. And it's certainly not enough to generate a big, huge living. I can promise you that, right? Like, I can promise you that. So, but you multiply that by 1 million people, and that's a whole lot of views that are getting pulled away from what used to exist. The platforms have shifted, the content has shifted, the amount of content has shifted, and it is slowly pulling dollars out of the tournament fishing industry. They're still in the bass fishing industry, but the dollars are coming out of the tournament fishing industry. That's a fact, Jack. And until tournament bass fishing really embraces and figures out how to capitalize on the social media aspects of it and goes all in on that. Right now, they're like 1 foot in. Until they go all in on that, they will continue to lose revenue year after year. And I can assure you, from talking to guys behind the scenes, both of these trails are struggling financially. Both of them. Right now, it's kind of a race to see who lasts longer. Maybe the other guy can buy the other. And they think that's the solution. They think if they can outlast and this one can buy this one and they can have the whole top-level bass fishing world and won, they think that's going to be the solution to their financial issues. It's not. It's not going to change anything. It is slowly but surely dying right now. So, and likelihood is somebody with enough money will come in and buy it again and put some more money into it, and it'll keep going. Like, when I say dying, I don't mean like it's going to go away. But these anglers aren't going to get paid more. It's going to become harder and harder and harder to be a professional angler unless they change things. Big C, good point. Oddly enough, The Rock has the most views of bass fishing on social media. How about that? The Rock. Pond fishing. Take a guy that's already got a lot of pull, a lot of attention. He goes pond fishing. He's getting more views than anybody. When the Elite Series was at Lake Fork last year, we had the video with the most views from that tournament the week after it came out, the week after the tournament happened, was on our YouTube channel, on Your Lake Fork Guide. So, like, they're missing the boat, man. They got to go all in on that stuff. And I think they're trying to, and they think they are all in. They're not. They're not analyzing exactly how to format the videos. What is the masses related to? Anyway, like I said, whole other podcast. We got off beat there. We were supposed to be talking about this tournament that's coming up and previewing that. Did anybody ever answer, are we going to do Angler of the Year preview first and do picks for that first? Or are we going to do tournament preview and picks for the Okeechobee tournament first? Which one do y'all want first? Somebody answer. I'll try to scroll up and see if y'all gave me an answer. Do I think they need? I think they need to start showing. Somebody's asking about forward-facing sonar on live coverage, because it sucks to watch the back of a dude. Just watch a dude's back while he stares down a screen. That's boring, right? Yeah, I think they need to incorporate that screen being in the corner of what you're watching. Like, y'all know what I'm saying? Like, if Chris Zaldain's out there looking at live sonar, his live sonar needs to be shown in the corner of the box where you can see what he's seeing. That'll make it a lot more entertaining. I do think that needs to happen. How that happens, how long it takes them to make that happen, that's all above my pay grade. The individual tournament. All right, Wade Wilson responded first on that, so we'll go with the individual tournament preview first. So, Lake Okeechobee, Bassmaster hasn't been here in a while. I think for the out-of-state and out-of-area guys, right, let's just take our local guy. Let's take Lee, right? Lee Livesey, who's been good on the Elite Series. Now, I don't think Lee's been as good as we think he's been, because he's won some tournaments, right? And that's great. Winning is very difficult. But overall, like, if I told you guys right now, put it in the comments, guess where Lee Livesey, nobody cheat and look it up. Just give me an honest guess where you think Lee Livesey finished in Angler of the Year last year. I was shocked where he finished. I was personally shocked. Now, year before last, he had a top 10 or top 5 finish. The year before that, he was way down. But you take a guy like Lee, right, who's really good, who's becoming one of the better fishermen on the Elite Series, or is perceived that way anyway. He's from out of state, and they have not been to Okeechobee. He's been on there for 4 years now. They haven't been to Okeechobee since he's been there. I think when Lee was fishing opens, he was only doing regional stuff. I don't think Lee's ever tournament fished Okeechobee. Now, whether he fished Okeechobee somewhere in his past, I have no idea. On a trip, vacation, I don't know. No way of knowing that. But I don't think he's ever fished competitively in a tournament at a higher level at Okeechobee ever in his life. Man, that's a big lake that's very confusing and overwhelming at times. That's kind of a hard undertaking. That's a lot to ask a guy like him from out of the region that's never been there before when you're going against a Greg Hackney. It's been there and done that dozens of times, right? Like, that's a lot to ask. Let's see what y'all guess on Lee's Tournament of the Year. I got a 6th place. Somebody said 50s. Born to Fish is cheating. He looked it up. He got it right on the money. He finished 35. You're a cheater, Born to Fish. He finished 35th. I thought he was in the top 10 or close to it. For sure, top 15. He was 35th in angling. Like, the dude wouldn't even qualify for the Classic if he didn't win the tournaments. He won an Open and he won in Lake Fork on the Elite Series. He wouldn't have even qualified. I would have never guessed that. That blew my mind when I saw that, when I was kind of looking at some of the standings and stuff from last year before tonight's show. So this tournament at Lake Okeechobee, okay? Let me get my reference page up here. Well, trying to. I just mentioned it, but I think Greg Hackney's a good guy to watch. So you got guys that haven't been there in a professional, competitive environment before, right? That's the thing. You got some guys that just haven't been there and done that, okay? Okeechobee is usually, in a 4-day, 5-fish tournament, Okeechobee is usually won flipping. So I think that's the first thing you want to look at is guys that have experience there in top-level tournaments, and then maybe more importantly, look at guys that are real good at flipping. Because flipping heavy cover is usually how derbies get won there. You know, guys catch them on swim baits down there. Guys catch them offshore on a trap or a chatterbait in some offshore grass at times there. But, man, most of the time, those tournaments get won flipping. You know, Ish Monroe has won down there in a big way before. Boy, I wish he was in this event. That'd be fun to watch. But I think Greg Hackney's a great pick for this event. He's a flipper. He's got the time on the water. One guy that doesn't have time on the water but is a lot better in shallow grass than people think he is Patrick Walters. And Patrick Walters has been a consistent top 5, top 10 angler of the year guy. He's very consistently good. So Patrick may not win this week, but I bet you he'll be up there and have a good finish. He's just so consistent. The Johnson brothers. The Johnson brothers are kind of good everywhere, right? And I don't even know which one's which, right? I know there's one that's had a little more success than the other. I don't even know how to differentiate. Watch for one of the Johnson brothers to show up in a big way and possibly win this week as well. And there's a guy that I was just thinking about that I had in my head, and now I'm drawing a daggum brain fart on it. Y'all ever do that? I do it all the time. So I'll try to think of that and come back to it. Scott Martin. Scott Martin is his home lake. You would think Scott Martin would be a guy that you're like, yes, man, I just don't know, man. Like, he has not performed that well since he qualified for the Elite Series. He has not had very many good finishes for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, if he's just getting older. And a lot of these guys, as they get older and their kids start getting older, they get more involved with family stuff, and they just don't perform as well. I mean, it's happened to everybody throughout the history of bass fishing as they get older. And I don't think it's, when you get older, you can still be good when you're older. Like, it's not a skills thing. It is an effort and commitment thing, right? Like, to me, that's what it is. It's about, as you get older, you've done it so many times, it's harder to stay as committed. It's harder to really dig in and be all in, mentally grinding, focused on nothing but that tournament when you've done it hundreds of times. When your kids are getting older, there's more of their stuff you want to be involved in. It's hard to stay committed at the level that, say, a Patrick Walters, the guy we just mentioned, young, no kids, great support system with his family and his mom and dad and his wife, great support system. They're all in on him being good. All of them are. Man, that guy's got no distractions. He's only focused on the fishing. That makes such a big difference, man. Such a big difference. Mark my words, as great as Jacob Wheeler is now, 5, 7, 8 years from now, you will start to see him slip as those kids of his get older and he starts realizing how much he's missing and wants to be more involved. It's part of bass fishing, and I think it's part of bass fishing because in general, the guys that are involved in bass fishing are really, really good guys, good people that want to put family first, feel obligated to put family first. And as their kids grow up, they see some of the things they miss out on, and they kind of change some of their ways. And some of it's just natural complacency. Once you've been there and done that, it ain't the same again, It's just not. I had another pick for you guys, and I can't think of it for Okeechobee, but there's not much to preview on Okeechobee. It's Okeechobee. It's February. They're probably going to be flipping, okay? They're probably going to be flipping. Yeah, pretty simple stuff. Better watch out for the General Larry Nixon. He has more tournament experience. He does have more tournament experience on Okeechobee than everybody else. But, and he's old. Like, Larry Nixon is a legend. It would be cool to see him have a good finish in the first event, just to kind of make a statement, hey, I'm back. I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think that's going to happen. Sorry. Jason Christie, yeah, I mean, Christie's always a threat. Christie's always a threat. Listen, I could be way wrong. Oh, I know who the other people are. I don't think Christie is going to be the guy in this tournament. I mean, he could be. Listen, this is bass fishing. Anything can happen at any time. There's no absolutes in bass fishing, period. Nothing is absolute guaranteed in bass fishing. That's the only guarantee, is that nothing is guaranteed in bass fishing. So Christie could show up, show out. He could win the whole dang thing this week. No doubt he has the capabilities to do it. He's not one of my personal picks. The other guy I was going to tell you guys, Jacob Prosnick. Jacob Prosnick has experience for a long time on top-level tournament bass fishing, so I'm sure he's been to Okeechobee at the top level of competition. He can do it a different way. He can win down there in Florida finesse fishing. Something different, often on a lake like Okeechobee that's super pressured and super popular. A lot of times that can be the thing that puts somebody over the top. He can survive finesse fishing, and he's doing something different, and it separates him by the end of 4 days. That can be so. So we got Jacob Prosnick, we got Patrick Walters, we got Greg Hackney, and a Johnston brother. That's our picks for Lake Okeechobee. I think getting off to a good start in Florida is a big part, okay, a big part of Angler of the Year. So let's look at the schedule and see what we got. On the Bassmaster Elite Series this year, it's a different schedule than we're used to seeing with the Elite Series. We kind of, we see certain types of lakes at certain times of the year. Man, it's a little different this year. Typically, the Elite Series, I kind of think of them, they're like, we're going to the best big bass fisheries and trying to get there at the best time to be there. It's not necessarily the case this year. Lake Okeechobee is a good one. From what I understand, it's not as good as it has been in the past. But Lake Okeechobee is a good one, no doubt. They start there. That is their only Florida tournament. That's not normal. After that, and this is leading into our Angler of the Year talk, because the schedule matters a lot for who's going to be up there for Angler of the Year. Then we're going to Bainbridge, Georgia for Lake Seminole. It's another shallow water lake. We saw a tournament there years ago that Brett Height won on a chatterbait, catching pre-spawn fish. Could be a similar type of deal this year. We'll see. But we're going to Lake Seminole at the end of February. Then we've got Lake Murray. We don't have another Elite Series tournament for 2 months. From February 23rd, 26th is Seminole. Then we go to Lake Murray, South Carolina, April 20th to 23rd. 2 months without a Bassmaster tournament in March and April. That's kind of odd. Like, that's not normal for Bassmaster. That's not taking people to the best big fish lakes at the best big fish time. Because you all know March and April across the South is it, dude. Like, that's it for big bass. After that, we go to Santee Cooper, April 27th to 30th. Then we go to Lay Lake in Alabama, May 11th through 14th. Not a real big fish fishery. We go to Sabine River in Texas, June 1 to 4. Not a big fish fishery at all. And after that, we're going up north for the rest of the schedule, guys. We got St. Clair, Lake Champlain, and the St. Lawrence River, July 27th, August 17th, August 24th. Other than Santee Cooper, in Okeechobee and Seminole, the rest of this just doesn't fit what we've come to see on the Bassmaster Elite Series the last few years, in my opinion. So this is going to be a different year. This is going to be, to me, a grinder's year. Like, you got to be a consistent dude that can catch them in all kinds of conditions when it's tough. Some of these, Lake Murray can be tough. Okay, it can be tough. Probably won't be that tough in April 20th. Everywhere's pretty good April 20th, right? You're also going to have to be a pretty daggum accomplished smallmouth fisherman with 3 true smallmouth events at the end of the year, St. Clair, Champlain, and St. Lawrence. So 3 of the 8 tournaments are in smallmouth country. Sabine River is just a mess of a fishery. If you've ever seen a tournament there, it's always interesting because it's so different. But the weights aren't going to be very big at all. It's going to be a grinders tournament, and it's an absolute maze of a fishery down there on that lower Sabine River where they're going. Lay Lake, we've seen some very tough tournaments at Lay Lake. This is going to be, we're going to kind of see the return this year, I bet, of some real finesse fishermen. Some guys that are good with finesse stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I don't even know who most of those guys are anymore. They're like, Lord rest his soul, Aaron Martins ain't there anymore, and he had gone to Bass Pro Tour anyway. Porosnik's a guy you got to, I think, watch out for when it comes to finesse fishing. He's a finesse fishing fool. He's good at that stuff, man. He is really good at that stuff. I don't know that I really want to pick him, but I kind of do. I kind of do. Here's my pick for Angler of the Year. Here's my number one pick for Angler of the Year. The way this tournament schedule sets up with the 3 smallmouth tournaments, the grinder tournaments, and a couple of big bass tournaments. These guys, I say these guys. This guy has proven himself. I'm going to go with the Johnson brothers. It's going to be one of them. I think it's Chris. Chris Johnson, I think, is my pick. But if Corey wins that, I still get credit, right? We're just going to say that. Because I get confused on which one's which. But the Johnson brothers, and I think it's Chris especially, has proven they can go to Florida. They can go to Texas. They can go anywhere and catch them. And then on top of that, we're going to give them 3 tournaments at the end of the year in smallmouth country. The guy we probably should all be picking is probably Brandon Polinick. I feel like after just winning it, man, that's such a long shot to win it twice in a row. And not only that, but just having your first kid, I feel like that's got to take some of your focus away a little bit, and rightfully so. So I don't want to pick Polinick this year. Plus, we just picked him last year, so that's kind of boring to pick him 2 years in a row. So I'm going to pick Chris Johnson to win the Angler of the Year with the caveat that I might mean Corey. But I think it's Chris. So Johnson brother for the Angler of the Year win. Now, there's another guy that I like at Okeechobee. I like at Seminole. I love at Murray. I love him at Cooper. I even like him at Lay Lake in the Sabine River. I just don't know about him up north at the end. That is Patrick Walters. Patrick Walters has been knocking on the Angler of the Year door for a little bit now, for a few years. He's top 5 the last 2 years in a row, I'm pretty darn sure. 5th last year, I believe is what he was. In fact, I've got that right here. Give me 1 second. Let's see last year's results. Yeah, he was 5th last year. Man, I like Patrick. I've gotten to know him personally a little bit, so maybe I'm a little biased on that. But I think 2 tournaments in South Carolina, 1 in Georgia, that's in his home part of the world, man. That's in he ain't never had that many tournaments right around, stuff that he really, really, really knows, right? Like, he really knows that stuff. I worry a little bit about him on the smallmouth stuff, but he's a live sonar dude, so maybe he can get that going his way on the smallmouth stuff. So the second pick is going to be Patrick Walters for Angler of the Year. All right, who's the next pick? Next 2, I'm going to kind of go outside the box here, right? Like, I'm going to go a little bit out off the beaten path. Brian New came out last year and was 15th in Angler of the Year. And won right away in Florida. But, man, this is a dude that can do a little bit of everything. He's a very diverse, and a lot of these guys are, but he's a very diverse angler. And he has seems to have the right mental makeup for the grinder events. So I'm liking Brian New this year. So we're going to go ahead and pick Brian New as well in our Angler of the Year preview. And last, I'm going to go ahead and throw him out there because of how much I think finesse fishing is going to come into play. And I'm going to take Jacob Porosnik. He did not do good last year. He did okay. He was 33rd. But he didn't do great. But I think this schedule sets up a lot better for him. So I'm going to pick Jacob Porosnik. And then an outsider pick. We'll take Rookie of the Year pick, who might I doubt he'll slide into contention for Angler of the Year. But for Rookie of the Year, if you watched the NPFL or kept up with that at all, this guy did some great things there. His couple years he did that and qualified through the Opens this past year and qualified pretty handily. Led the Opens Angler of the Year most of the year, I think. John Sukup from right next door in Oklahoma to me down here. Man, he's a guy that he gets up there shallow and gets to flipping, but he is an absolute live sonar guru. So when it's offshore, he'll have that going on too. I think John Sukup's going to have a really good first year on the Elite Series. So that's my Rookie of the Year pick. Got a little bonus coverage in there on the Rookie of the Year stuff. What do y'all think? All right, if y'all got some questions, comments you want me to address, throw them in there. Alton Jr., see some guys picking Paul Nick. We already talked about that. Alton Jr., man, he's good. He's proven he's good. I just don't think there's not enough body of work there. Alton Jr.'s on the Bass Pro Tour. What are we talking about? We're talking about Bassmaster now. If you're talking about for MLF being Angler of the Year, Alton Jr., maybe he'd have to take a big step up. He just hasn't quite been on up there as much as some of the other guys. Still want to know why they aren't coming to Fork this year. They're not. Here's what's shocking. More shocking than them just not coming to Fork. Both tours, neither tour is coming to Texas at all, except for the Bassmaster Elite Series is going to the Sabine River. If you're going to go to one Texas stop, why the Sabine River? All I can tell you guys is there's a lot of moving parts to scheduling these tournaments. There is money involved from towns that'll pay them. There is logistics as far as live coverage goes. I know, I think Toledo is a challenge for live coverage now that we do everything live. I think Toledo Bend is a real challenge for live coverage. Most of that lake, you ain't getting no signal. If you've ever been to Toledo Bend, you know. It's dead zone out there for cell phone signal in a huge portion of that lake. So Sabine River's right down the road from Rayburn and Toledo. Now, why they didn't go to Rayburn instead of Sabine, I know they get big crowds down there in Orange, Texas, because, hell, what else is going on in Orange, Texas, man? There ain't nothing down there. You're a long way from anything big city-wise. So they get big crowds from that area, and maybe that Chamber of Commerce is just willing to pay them enough money to keep showing up. It dang sure ain't for the big fish weights. That ain't why they're there. I don't understand why they're going away this year on Bassmaster from the big fish ponds. They definitely have gone away from the traditional big fish ponds, with the exception of, Santee Cooper and maybe Okeechobee. And the word on Okeechobee the last few years is it has not been that good. So I am anxious to see what the weights actually are on Okeechobee during this tournament because, of course, these guys, if there's any big fish to be caught, they'll find them. And I'm sure there's still big fish in Okeechobee like there always has been. So I'm sure some of these guys will have big weights. But I bet throughout the field the weights are pretty low. Just considering, I don't know. I'm just guessing based on the rumors I've heard, right? So that's it. Don't forget Gussie. Jeff Gustafson's really good too. You're right. No, he's a good one. I didn't pick him for no other reason than I just didn't pick him. There's not a reason not to really pick him. He's been really consistently good too. He really has. All right, fellas. Well, I think that's going to about do it for us tonight, man. That's the first Tournament of the Year preview, Angler of the Year preview. So hopefully we brought a little bit of insight to you guys tonight. And we'll, as the tournament year develops, we'll keep covering some of it. And, man, appreciate you guys watching as always. Do me a favor, man. Share this thing. Y'all know how it is. Sharing is caring in the modern world. So do me a favor, share it. I don't know why it's making me film vertical like this on YouTube now instead of horizontal. Like we used to be able to turn it and it would film horizontal. Now when I turn it, it does something weird with the camera and you can't even see me and I'm sideways anyway. And so we're filming vertical on live stream for now. I'll try to figure out what's going on with that, but I really honestly do not have any earthly idea why it's doing that. So thank y'all for sitting with me through it, man. Appreciate it. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought. And we'll see you next time right here on your Lake Fork Guide. Cheers, y'all.